Right, hello there, everyone. Welcome back to James Redmond TV, and welcome to a very, very, very objective rant from Hammers. I'm fuming. If you don't know about the Bournemouth game, it was a great game in which we performed fairly well. A bad start, really bad start. But then we actually built into the game, and we actually looked like we could kick a footy, and we could score some goals. And by the way, the defence was great, so there was loads of positives. So you're not going to get a negative rant based on performance, which is nice for a change. But I also don't like doing the officiating thing. I think we've all established that this country's got pretty bad referees, but today we're going to analyse whether or not McAllister's decision will be getting overturned. I'm pretty sure it will get appealed, but will the appeal be successful? That's what we're here to analyse. And also, I think we can all agree, even pundits was agreeing who don't support Liverpool or have no affiliation to Liverpool, were absolutely dead certain the bare minimum that they should have required was a yellow card, and anything more is just ridiculous. And the reason why it's so bad, before I show you the Jurgen Klopp quotes, because Klopp has spoke about this, and I'm also going to break down how long we actually miss McAllister for. We know it's 3 games, but when you break it down even more, it's actually really, really bad. But the important thing to analyse here is that, was it the right call? And if it was nowhere near the right call, well, then it needs to be looked into, because that's obviously going to have a severe impact on our team. And whether this happened to our team or somebody else's, it sets a very dangerous precedence when it can really affect, especially smaller teams. If this was to happen to one of their star players, and you think about the lack of quality in our midfield, we haven't really got many options, so it'd be nice to be having as many as possible. And it would be fair. Justice needs to be served if it's a red card, but if it's not a red card, then why are you giving him a red card? So we're going to break it down. I'm going to be showing you clips, and I'm going to be showing you quotes and whatnot. First and foremost, how long does McAllister miss if this red card, which right now he has got a red card and he's going to be missing 3 games of football? Well, just to break it down into even further context in terms of the games that he will be missing, as well as how long he's going to be out for. It's really, really devastating, because he's just came into a bit of fine form. I think even though he's not a 6, and we can all establish he's not a 6, it's still important that we have a player on that level, you know what I'm saying, who can at least do a job. So these are the fixtures for the remainder, or the foreseeable. So you've got Newcastle on the 27th of August. Then we've got Aston Villa, which is the 3rd of September. And then we've got Wolves on the 16th of September. Now, bear in mind, day of recording, this is the 20th of August. He's going to be missing over a month of football for what was a very, very pathetic challenge to even consider giving him a red card for. And that's what I want to show you now. So not only are they tough games that he's going to be missing, but he's also missing out on quite a lot of games, and he's missing out on over a month worth of football, which is important, because that's actually going to be a detriment to his overall impact on the team and all these things, the momentum behind him. And that's as it stands right now. It could get appealed, but we'll see. Jurgen Klopp on McAllister's red card. It's a decision I think we all agree is a yellow card. So he's being fair, he's being subjective, and he's saying, listen, I do think that even though it weren't a red card in my eyes, I do think it was enough to be a foul. VAR has not overturned it, because the contact means there is no clear and obvious mistake. The punishment we had, playing 40 minutes of the game with 10 men, should be enough, but let's see. We have to talk to the authorities. So this is what Klopp had to say on the actual decision, which obviously I agree with. I think you can say it was a foul, and it's more than fair to say it was a foul. And I don't think he's attacking any referees. So if from this, because we know how strict FA are when it comes to disagreeing with their decisions, especially a manager on live television. So if this is one to go back on Klopp or bite him in the ass, for instance, then I think that'll be really wrong, because I think Klopp knows that he has to be very careful and tiptoey when he talks about these referees, as do all managers. So yeah, that was the Jurgen Klopp quote regarding the red card. Now, I actually want to show you guys the tackle itself, and I do want to change the screen, because I don't want to be at risk of being copyrighted, because I'm showing you footage from the actual Premier League. But here, as you can see, this is the tackle from a fan's angle. And I just think it's very, very, very harsh. I'll play that one time. Let me just mute that volume as such. Then what's your opinion, chat? Because this is where I struggle. I struggle that this is red card. Red card. And I'm also going to show you other examples of other challenges in previous time, this season and previous seasons, of ones that have not been even considered being a red card, not even from fans. So that was the challenge. You can now make your decision on whether or not that was a red card. In my opinion, I think it's obvious. This was a photo that I retweeted a few tweets of certain instances. This is an incident from the game where Gakpo was kicked in the chest, and you can see that it's left a mark. It was a rather dangerous challenge. You can see the foot's not too far from his face, maybe not high enough for head. But for some players, listen, if you're going to throw in Lisandro Martinez there, then it's giving him a haircut, you know what I mean, chat? So I think in this instance, just got Gakpo's tall. maybe it's not being taken into consideration as a dangerous challenge, but that is considerably more dangerous. Just from our game, I found a challenge that's more dangerous than McAllister's red card. So what I don't appreciate is the inconsistency on the referee's point of view. And if we don't have consistent rules and regulations, well, then now we've got a huge, huge problem. So that's one other example. Here's one on Bruno Fernandes against Tottenham yesterday. There's Romero, who does a very similar challenge to McAllister. Very similar challenge. And you can see it's not given. It's not even considered. That's important. So listen, that's one example. Well, actually, two examples. One from our game, one from the United game, where inconsistencies are found. This was us against Chelsea. Think about the high boot again. Actually a danger and what should be considered immediately as a red card. Now, do I think this was a red card from Raheem Sterling? No, who's that? That's not Raheem Sterling. Is that Badie Ashile? I'm not too sure. Either way, if this is to be considered, then fine. If we're going to give this a red card and we're going to give the Romero challenge a red card, then I understand at least we're finding consistency. But there's barely any consistency, and that's a problem. So that's another one. And I believe I might have even... So that was another one of the Konate thing. This is a still image of the Romero thing. So again, identical. In fact, you could even argue more dangerous. McAllister's challenge scraped the foot of the opponent. This one is right on the shin. Now, luckily, it's where the shin pads are, so it's not not an over amount of danger for Bruno. But I don't think this is a red card. But I don't think ours was a red card. So now we've got to talk about the appeal. Now we've got to talk about what's the chances of this decision being overturned, and is it likely that it will be overturned? I don't think, in the same way the UFC don't usually overturn controversial decisions. So I can think of John Jones, Dominic Reyes. Years and years ago, everyone thought Dominic Reyes won that fight at least 3-2. Some people said, you didn't come and beat the champion, so you've got to go and beat the champion. No, based on criteria, he won that fight if you're going to analyse everything. He didn't win the fight, and it didn't get overturned because it's very, very rare for an athletic commission to oppose what the people they employed made. So bear in mind, these referees represent FA. So the FA are not going to come out and shit on their own quality of refereeing, because that just doesn't make too much sense. But what they will do is make sure that they stay strong in their decision, because if they're always constantly overturning decisions, well, now it takes away from the credibility. And as we know, that's not what they want. That's what they've never wanted. That's why they fine managers and players extortionate prices simply for just opposing a referee's decision. They look at it like a credibility decrease, opposed to one conversation being productive about how do we improve the quality of refereeing. So yeah, that's why I think, if I was to make a prediction, I predict this decision gets appealed by the club. I predict that it gets looked at a little bit. But then I also predict that it doesn't get overturned, because I don't think... I think Jurgen Klopp's right. I think, based on the original decision to keep that as a red card, now do you have the leeway to overturn it, when technically you could say there was contact, and technically you could say if it was any different, it could have been dangerous. But now we're just doing all if buts maybes, and that doesn't really align with what is definitive. It doesn't align with a definitive premise of actual consistency based on how we conclude decisions, other examples of players getting away with it, and then not to mention how this would take away from our team or teams lower in the Premier League. Imagine if this was, say, when Newcastle were really, really bad and their only good player was Alan St-Maximin. Imagine that happens to St-Maximin. Now Newcastle have lost their main outlet up front. That's a problem. For Liverpool, luckily, we can go out and buy a new CDM, or Curtis Jones is fine enough to replace McAllister for 3 games, don't get me wrong. So I'm not complaining on that sense. But again, it's one of our star players who's out of a game that he should not be out of. So that's why we've got to talk about it in context. And in context, we've said that based on pundits, aligns with the club, not aligned with the club, don't think it's a red card. The majority opinion, the people who hate Liverpool most on Twitter, and I see nothing but shit, agree that this was not a red card. And then we look at other examples where it's not a red card. And what does this mean based on a poor decision from the FA, which needs to be overturned? It means McAllister is going to miss over a month of his first Liverpool season, which not only is bad for us, but it disrupts his momentum. So now you're affecting someone's career based on poor decisions. So it's not the first time and it's not the last. Football is not a fair game. Football is filled with injustices that are not analysed or looked at. But one thing is for sure, is that you can make wrongs right in terms of correcting the original decision. We already had the punishment of missing a player for the final half an hour or 20 minutes of a game. Now let's not actually further fuck this situation up by keeping him suspended. So let me know what you think in the chat, because I just wanted to have a little moan and just show like the inconsistencies, man. You know what I mean? It's right there, chat, so you can see it. And I'm not just giving you a blind but BS, you know what I'm saying? But smash a like if you enjoy, only if you enjoy. If you don't, then there's no point in doing stuff like that. Give me some constructive feedback in the comments down below. Do you think it will get overturned? Not do you think it should be overturned? Do you think it will get overturned based on how these things usually go? But anyway, without further ado, I've been James Red Montinho. This has been an update on the red card McAllister situation, and I will see you guys later. Sayonara.